Hey, this is Pat Johnston from Left of Lansing, Michigan's premier progressive podcast. Okay, I have to dispel this myth that Michigan Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin won her 2024 Senate race against MAGA Republican Florida Mike Rogers because she was a moderate. Of course, no one ever specifies what her supposed moderation was all about because then they'd have to reveal some rather disturbing answers as to how Elissa Slotkin nearly lost an almost certain to win Senate seat. Now, there are some who argue that voting for a strong, populist, working class progressive like Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Abdul Al Sayed is too risky since Michigan is a purplish state. But as good friend to the show, Livingston County progressive Casey Helton reminded everyone, a Republican has not won a Michigan Senate seat since 1994 when I was a freshman at Central Michigan University and we couldn't escape Sheryl Crow's All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun song. Now, whoever wins the Michigan Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate race this August will win this November. All right, that is an easy prediction to make. It is not an outlandish prediction to make. And I think many probably will agree with me on that. Why? Because Florida Mike Rogers is clinging to his dear leader Trump, which means Florida Mike Rogers is clinging to Trump's wrecked economy. Florida Mike Rogers is clinging to Trump's ICE Gestapo. Florida Mike Rogers is clinging to Trump's tariffs. Florida Mike Rogers is clinging to Trump's gas prices. And Florida Mike Rogers is clinging to Trump's war on Iran. Mike Rogers offers more of the same, and there's nothing new he's offering other than being dear leader's subservient little worker in the Senate whose main job will be to protect the Epstein class while enriching those who fund his campaign. And we call Mike Rogers Florida Mike Rogers up here because, you see, Florida Mike skedaddled out of Michigan after being a congressman, so that way he could make loads of cash in Florida being a defense contractor. And thanks to some fantastic reporting in Michigan Advance, Ben Solis has revealed how Mike Rogers will try to get on the Senate's banking committee since he's already accepted thousands of dollars in bribes from the banking industry. How lovely. Yeah, he's really a working class man. He's offering nothing new, and he is a horrible, horrible candidate. And that's where I have to put an end to the myth that Elissa Slotkin's the only reason Democrats eked out a victory on that otherwise dismal election night in 2024. As I have reminded everyone, Slotkin was slated to win by somewhere between 2 to 5 percentage points just days before the election. However, some polls did show her numbers slipping in the month of October. Now, we must remember how the Michigan Democratic Party galvanized around then Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin, essentially signaling to others to stay out of the race. The Michigan Democratic Party backed Slotkin, believing that her so-called moderation would win the day. In the end, she underperformed massively, winning that election against Florida Mike Rogers by just 0.3 percentage points, showing that perhaps, just perhaps, running a directionless third way moderate race wasn't the elixir after all? Oh, you'll see Slotkin go on Bill Maher's show now and talk about how Democrats need alpha energy. Yet, she displayed none of that alpha energy during her campaign. She did a campaign ad talking about how insurance companies screwed over her family as her mom was sick with a terminal disease. Yet, other than saying that she was in the race to help people like her mom, Elissa Slotkin never explained how she would help people getting screwed by America's broken and corrupted healthcare system. She didn't run on fixing anything to help a working class that is hurting. It's one thing to run against someone or something, but without solutions, what's the point? Voters just tune out. Now, I can already hear some of you yelling, hey, but Kamala Harris lost Michigan and Elissa Slotkin won. True. However, a Detroit poll in June of 2024 showed Trump leading Biden 49 to 42. And we know that after that disastrous debate for Joe Biden, those numbers were never, ever going to get better. Kamala Harris ended up losing to Trump by 1.4% in the state of Michigan. That means Harris greatly improved on Biden's numbers from the summertime while never being completely able to erase the deficit, which we've gone into before as well. Still, thanks to Harris, she closed the gap and probably helped pull Elissa Slotkin over the finish line just barely. I mean, Slotkin didn't really ever hammer home the point or even run ads on how Mike Rogers lived in Florida for over a decade and how he moved back immediately to just run for the Senate. I mean, he just got a house months before he started to run for the Senate, and she didn't even hardly touch it. She didn't call him out for working as a defense contractor lobbyist, proving that, hey, you know what? Mike Rogers and all Republicans out there, government does help create some jobs, doesn't it? She didn't do that. She showed zero, and I mean zero, alpha energy. She played a milquetoast, little fuzzy technocrat who didn't understand how to connect with the working class. And she kept up with that game even after she won. I think that was even more upsetting. In the first few months in the Senate, she voted to pass a cryptocurrency bill at the pleasure of the cryptocurrency industry and the Trump family. She voted for that sickening Laken Riley Act, which was basically the opening victory MAGA Republicans and Trump needed to then explain why they had to start using ICE to patrol our streets and terrorize undocumented citizens, terrorize American citizens, and also killing both undocumented and American citizens. She was also the lone Democrat, mind you, to vote to block California's ban on gas-powered cars and even got congratulated by dear leader himself. And Elissa Slotkin also voted to confirm Kristi Noem to be head of Homeland Security, and we saw how tragic that really turned out to be, having Noem lead ICE into places like Minneapolis. But now, Slotkin talks about how Democrats need alpha energy. I mean, she goes on Bill Maher's show saying we need alpha energy as he continues to spew his pro-right-wing Israeli genocidal nonsense along with his blatant and sickening Islamophobia. Hey, but you know what? When it comes to Islamophobia, that doesn't seem to bother Elissa Slotkin, I guess, which is why she and her team had no problem appearing on such shows like Bill Maher's. Let's just stop with this whole myth that Elissa Slotkin pulled out some impossible Connecticut last-second prayer shot over Duke kind of a victory in Michigan. She barely won in a race she had no business losing in the first place. Just imagine if Slotkin had made a few speeches in Dearborn and said, you know what, as senator, I'll never greenlight money for Israel's genocidal operations in Gaza. I'm going to change my tune. I mean, you think that would have maybe gained her some votes in Dearborn or even with younger people? I mean, how come I see those blaming Dearborn voters for Trump, but they never, ever point out or point the finger at people like Elissa Slotkin, who pretty much advocated for the same in Gaza and didn't really want to change much when it came to how much money and arms we give to Israel. We must remember that we're in a state that Trump won twice and Bernie Sanders defeated Hillary Clinton in the Democratic presidential primary. We can't forget that. Now, of course, Trump was never going to help the working class in the state, and I tried to warn so many people that he only cares about himself. He only cares about his class, the Epstein class. Corruption will always run rampant. It's always about enriching that class. But working class Michiganders are just searching for someone who will hear them. I've been saying that working class Americans are tired of being left behind, not feeling left behind. They are tired of being left behind while they see corporate interest and those in the Epstein class living by their own set of rules. The working class just wants someone knowing that they're being heard and that someone will be a voice for them. I mean, Mike Rogers is so easily beatable, which is why a strong populist working class voice will destroy Florida Mike's working class fakeness and put Florida Mike on the defensive at all times. Plus, as I said, dear leader Trump's numbers are in the trash. He is just going to drag down Republicans everywhere, especially here in Michigan, thanks again to some of those tariffs. Plus, a strong working class populist voice actually states solutions to improve the lives of millions of people. We're seeing in a state like Maine, by the way, how a progressive working class candidate is wiping out the establishment corporate Democrats in that state's Democratic primary. Working class Michiganders will do the same. You just have to give them a reason to do it. So again, don't believe in the myth that Elissa Slotkin's moderation was some magic elixir in Michigan. She barely won in a seat she had no business losing.